Let's talk about The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. This is, in fact, the only book that I finished in June, but that is besides the point. This is a fantasy book that is written by the same author that wrote The Night Circus. I read that quite a few years ago at this point, and I loved that book, like 5 out of 5 stars. I know a lot of other people loved it as well. So I went into this book with kind of high expectations, but I also tried to go into it with no expectations because I remember when this book first came out, and Book Talk did not well receive it. Like, it was a pretty big letdown from what I remember in the booktube community in a follow-up to how much people loved The Night Circus. So I kind of tried to go into this book with no expectations, even though I did really love The Night Circus. So before we get into my thoughts, let me tell you what this book is about. We're following our main character called Zachary. He's a college student and he ends up going to the library to check out some books, and he checks out this book that doesn't have an author. It doesn't have like a copyright page or like any information in it. It's literally just a book of stories, and he starts reading this book, and at first it just starts off as being like a little like fantasy kind of story, but then he reads a part of this book that is actually a story of him as a child discovering a painted door in an alleyway, and he has no idea how he is in this book. Something that happened to him many years ago has been written about in this book that has no author, and so he starts to try and research and find out as much as possible where this book came from, how it ended up in this library, and how part of his life is written into this book. And unfortunately, that's all that I feel like I can tell you about without spoiling too much. But let's just say that this is like a truly like magical, whimsical story. Like, this is probably the most magical, whimsical story that I have ever read. But however, that is somehow also this book's downfall. So like I said, I remember watching booktube videos when this first came out and hearing people talk about this book, and it's like a book about books, which is obviously very appealing to anybody who reads books. And if you like fantasy, like, this is such an appealing kind of story, and it starts out so just like scratching that itch of like every magical thing. Like, everybody wants to read a book where like your childhood is like written into it. Like, it's such a magical story. And the only way that I could describe as I was reading this book is that I feel like this is truly just like an author's like just like writing down the most magical like dreams that you could possibly have, even though they might not necessarily make sense. Like, that's what this book felt like, was a dream. And like, dreams don't exactly have logic or like actual plot points, if that makes sense. And that's where it's also this book's downfall, because it's so magical